Hello. Today I wanted to do a slightly simpler, more practical video about making an animated film in Blender. And I wanted to focus on 20 essential tools that I couldn't live without while making my animated short film, Good Pasture. These are very random and in no particular order. They're just 20 things that I use pretty much every day while working on this film. And I wanted to pick things that I thought people might not know about even if you use Blender a lot. So here we go. Clicking Shift B will allow you to draw a window around an area in your scene, and it will snap your viewport to frame that area perfectly. Similarly, selecting an object and hitting period on the number pad will frame that object perfectly within your viewport, and you can actually do this in any window, including the shader editor and the outliner. You can select an object in your scene, and then with your cursor over the outliner, hit period on the number pad to snap the outliner to the selected object. Using the / button will isolate an object in the viewport. This can be really handy for trying to play through an animation that might otherwise be bogged down by objects in your scene. Just select the object or objects that you want to isolate and hit slash. Hit slash again to undo this operation. Control-Shift-Click will connect any shader to the viewer and allow you to visualize what it's doing. This is especially useful for color ramps, so you can really dial in what they're doing. Just be sure to Control-Shift-Click the shader again once you're finished. You probably know that you can change the focal length of your camera, but remember that you can also change the focal length of the viewport itself. This is really helpful when working in small spaces so the viewport isn't constantly clipping through the walls. Using Shift right-click, we can snap our 3D cursor to any surface in our scene. What's really useful here is adjusting the transform pivot point to orbit around the 3D cursor. I love to use this to find a shot. Use Shift right-click to place the 3D cursor on a good pivot point, and then rotate the camera around the subject. This also works wonderfully for lighting too, to dial in that perfect backlight. In edit mode, if you click on a vertex, edge, or face, and then Control-click on another, Blender will connect those two via the shortest path that it can identify. Similarly, if you do Control-Shift-Click, it will select a square out of your 2 points, which can be really helpful. If you want to edit your model without affecting the texture, in Edit mode, under the Options menu, click Correct Face Attributes, and now when you move edge loops or anything else, Blender will try to keep your texture where it is. Under the object settings of any light, you will find the ray visibility settings. Turning select rays off for individual lights can be very useful, especially if you're trying to hide a reflection that is visible when it shouldn't be. This ray visibility option is also available for objects, so if you're trying to use a bounce board or a flag to shape the light like you would in real life, you can just click off the camera visibility and have an invisible object shaping the light in your scene. If you select a light and enter the shader editor, you can actually click Use Nodes and add an image texture into the input of the default emission shader. You can now load in a texture and have the light basically function as a projector. If you want to blur the image, just increase the radius of the light. If you hover over pretty much anything in Blender and hit F1, it will open the online manual in your browser and show you what the specific function does.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Intro to Geometry Nodes.
If you are making a film in which you have to see the same set or prop hundreds of times across hundreds of shots, using the link function in Blender to have that object or collection of objects live in an independent file where it can be controlled is essential. Just go to File, Link, and then find your file, click Collection, and find the collection that you wish to link. And there it is. It also helps enormously to have sub-collections that you can turn on and off depending on what you need. This way you are not always rendering the entire set, even if it's just a close-up. Camera Shakify is an add-on developed by Ian Hubert and Nathan Vegdahl, which uses real 3D tracked camera motion to recreate a variety of different handheld looks. It's all packaged into a few presets with adjustable parameters, and they are wonderful. I use them in this shot and many others on this film. Add a location keyframe to any object and then open the graph editor, and you will see the value available here. Under the Modifier tab, you can add a noise modifier, and this will distort the keyframe's value by a random amount depending on what you input here. This can be great for adding a little motion to your camera, your characters, or even making a light flicker. You can also use the built-in function to add a sine wave to a keyframe and create a nice consistent motion. I use this often to create the effect of breathing or swaying or things that benefit from a more predictable rhythm. If you click on an object and enter edit mode, you can use the shortcut of Shift-G to bring up the Select Similar menu. This menu will differ based on whether you are in vertex, edge, or face select mode, but they're all incredibly useful. I very frequently want to select faces by what material they are using, so you can just select a face that has the material you want and hit Shift-G, Material, to select all the other faces that share that material. You can select by normal, which is all the faces that are facing the same direction, or coplanar, which is all the faces on the same level. You can select edges by length or direction. You can select vertices by amount of connecting edges or vertex group. It's really dynamic and helpful. If you want to array a bunch of objects and add some randomness in there, you can use Alt-D to instance the objects and then turn on proportional editing with the fall offset to random and change the transform pivot point of the objects to individual origins. Now just rotate to add some nice subtle randomness into your scene. Under the object settings of any object, there is a delta transform option, which is separate from your base transform settings. This is very useful if you have an object with a bunch of location keyframes that you want to move wholesale. Instead of adjusting every keyframe manually, you can leave those alone and just adjust the delta transform to move everything around. This one is for all the people who, like me, were terrified of IK constraints. Anytime I would have to pose a character, I would just manually rotate each of the bones one by one, and then keyframe it all, and everything just took ages and looked crap. And then one day I was finally like, okay, I'll learn IKs, and they're actually quite easy to understand. So now if I want to move a character's hand, for instance, I select a bone, click Shift-I to add an IK constraint, and give it a chain length of 4. This means that the bone will influence all the other bones up to the shoulder, and now, if we move it, it's doing exactly what you would expect. This is how I was able to pull off shots like this. Any serious character animator is probably rolling their eyes at how basic this all is, but if you've never touched IK constraints before, they can be kind of intimidating, and I just wanted to show that they're not, and they're exceptionally useful. FaceIt is a facial animation add-on that uses shape keys in combination with motion capture that you can record straight from your phone, and it's actually really easy to set up and use. I tried setting up a proper facial rig with bones and everything, and I just could not figure it out for the life of me. So FaceIt has been a godsend for animation. It is a paid add-on, so I hesitate to include it here, but I definitely would not have been able to make this film without it, so it had to get a mention. Node Wrangler. This is a free add-on that I believe is included in Blender, so all you have to do is enable it from the add-ons menu. It does a lot of really helpful things when working with nodes, but the two functions I use most are selecting a shader and hitting Ctrl-T to add an image texture and mapping nodes. The other function it offers is being able to hit Ctrl-Shift-right-click and then just dragging this green line between two shaders to create a mix shader. So we'll end with a fun one. In object mode, you can hit Shift-tilde-key to enter navigation mode. Now you can just fly around your scene in first person. I use this all the time, partially just because it's really fun. You'll see at the bottom of your screen a list of hotkeys that you can use to control the navigation. Hit Tab to enable gravity, and now you can walk around your scene like you're in a video game. Aside from just being incredibly fun to do, this is actually really helpful for figuring out scale. Just having the impression of what it looks like to walk around your scene at eye level will help you identify if the scale is feeling correct. This is crazy. It also just feels like you're playing Minecraft, which is fun. So there you have it. Those are 20 very random essential tools for making an animated short film in Blender. I know sometimes for me it's not actually the theory that is getting in my way, but just literally, how do I select the thing that I can see that I'm trying to select, or how do I view my scene in the way that I need to view it? So hopefully this has been helpful in that regard. If you have your own essential tools, whether it be shortcuts or add-ons, feel free to leave a comment and share them so we can all learn from each other. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful, if for no other reason than to turn your film into Minecraft.